more than a year I told about Iron Any, our biggest R18 project. Now if you follow our video channels, after 1 year of work, that's our final Iron Any. It's called Iron Any because that's the nickname of the Junkers 52, a very famous German airplane, an old one. In Germany you usually call this Tante U, Aunt U, but the English nickname was Iron Any. That's why the bike is called Iron Any, and it has the typical color scheme of the Iron Any from a Lufthansa version of it. So this is our, so to speak, Junkers R18 called Iron Any. Let me do a quick go around and introduction about this beauty here. Our biggest and most iconic VTR Customs bike are all handmade aluminium, made by Cello and made by hand. So all the parts you see here are handmade out of a metal sheet of aluminium, and that's probably the biggest task. So we have a gas tank, seems to be very easy, but you also need to make sure that your fuel pump has space enough, but this is not the case because the gas tank is very small, so we have to customize the fuel pump as well. Then we have the typical airplane panels with access panels. That's what you usually see on airplanes, and since I was working as an aircraft engineer, so this is done by heart, at least on the sketches. Then Cello has to do this and make it real. Then something very special is this part here. So the Iron Any, the U52, has a very typical metal sheet work. So this is kind of to recognize or to rebuild this structure from a U52. And then if you look to the rear part, this should be a tail fin, remind you on a tail fin. And of course we have position light, but lights are not green and red for left and right. We use the standard ones. Something very special which looks pretty easy on the bike are these cooling panels here. So this was a very typical work the customers wanted to have, and looking very easy, but actually this was probably one of the most challenging parts, especially for Cello, to have this all in the same turns and make look them like real air cool panels, so open, and have them fixed somewhere which looks very smooth and natural. I think he worked on that 2 weeks and did it 7 times in a row until we had the final solution. So he almost killed me until we had these cooling panels. And then of course smaller details like the rear reverse gear with the indication here on the panel. Then you guys know our bikes, so of course we had to have a special gas filler cap, but we also like to have details like a speedo, for example, and we don't like, well, that's customized speedo, Iron Any, with the same lettering as you have on your standard R18 with the customized hand, and it's lighted, so we figured out who is the original producer of the original R18 face of the Speedo, and they made one version only for us, which was pretty expensive but perfect matching this bike. On the front end side, one of the goals was to have this R18 very low and very looking very small and tiny. So we had a front fairing going very flat and long, and that's why the speedo had to be integrated in the gas cap. You know these windows here from our Polizia Uno. And also the front fender, we had a longer discussion internally if we should have one or not. We and the customer decided to have a very short one, which I'm very happy with, to have a kind of a front fender. So a very special part, also the oil cooler panels or fairing, you know, the plastic one from the original R18. So this one looks very easy, but again, that's all handmade by Cello within several hours. So please don't send me a mail. You'd like to have this one. That's a one-off production. Also the whole bike, there is no kit and no reproduction. That's a one-off bike. That's a customer solution which we build only once in a lifetime. Then the perspective I like very much is if you look from behind to the bike especially looks very small and tiny if you look from the side, and also if I stand beside the bike. So personally for me, I get the feeling I'm standing in front of an 9T, but if you look to the bike, a very slim and tiny line, but a huge, massive, big engine, and actually that's the widest part of the whole bike. Even the handlebar is smaller than the engine, and that's something, the perspective I like the most, looking from behind. Reminds me on the very big engines you see on airplanes. Another little trick we did on the bike to make it really look small and compact, we have big wheels. We have 18-inch on the rear wheel and 21-inch on the front wheel, a Kineo wheel set. The bike was done from one of the first R18 first editions we got. So if you know the R18s, you know the details. We have all over chrome, so of course we didn't like chrome, so all the engine has to be painted, all the chrome parts has to be painted, meaning removing engine, gearbox, and also the rear drive case. And then, of course, since this is a project on a higher budget, we usually like to have the best Magura HC3 brake and clutch pump to make it really kind of professional, and racing and technology and all other parts had to be chrome. The cylinder head covers is a prototype from a colleague in Czechia, which makes the engine even look even more massive and big. And of course, number plates, engine plates are handmade also by us. That's the original lettering or letters from the R18, but of course the bike is called Iron Any. That's why we have special engine plates. And a small little detail, this is the original Junkers logo from the time when they built the aircraft. So this is the logo, but with the owner's name. And something very, also pretty tricky, the owner wanted to have a really horse saddle look like on this bike. So that's pretty tricky to have actually look and feel of a real horse saddle. So this is two parts here. Also this here is two parts. This was a longer story to have it done perfectly, but actually in the end it helps us to make this distance here, which would usually be all in gray, to make it more small and smoother. So that's probably, from the look and feel, one of the smallest R18 I have ever seen. And our project called Iron Any, our biggest R18 project so far. If you have another funny idea, send me a mail, but wait another year. Cello will kill me if we get another project like this. So, introduction to our first and biggest handmade R18 project called Iron Any from Switzerland.